Welcome to the Bible Character Podcast. Today, we sit with a woman whose name we say with honor. A name often whispered with admiration, Ruth. But before she stepped into the pages of legacy, her story began in heartbreak. She wasn't born in Israel. She wasn't raised in a temple. She was a widow, a foreigner, a woman with nothing left, except love and loyalty. She had the option to go back to what was familiar, back to her people, back to comfort. But she didn't. She chose something else. She chose covenant. She chose to walk with a broken woman named Naomi. She chose to follow a God she barely knew, because something deep inside told her, there's more to this story. If you've ever lost someone, if you've ever been the outsider, if you've ever chosen love, even when it hurt, this episode is for you. Because Ruth didn't just glean in the fields, she sowed something eternal. Ruth, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Delight.
Ruth, take us back. Who were you before we met you in the Bible? Before Bethlehem, before Boaz? What did your life look like?
I was a Moabite girl, born in a land that worshipped other gods. I grew up watching people bow to stone and fire, but my heart always wondered if there was more. And then I met him, Naomi's son. He wasn't like the men in my land. There was a softness about him, a reverence, a depth. We got married. And for a while I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe I get to have love and family and a future. But death came, and with it, silence. I didn't just lose a husband, I lost a dream, a name, a plan. I lost the future I thought I had neatly folded in my hands. Naomi lost more. But grief doesn't compare itself. We were two women with graves behind us and no road ahead.
That kind of loss, it can silence a soul.
It did. For a while, all I did was wake up and breathe. No songs, no prayers, just breathing. But even in that silence, something was happening.
So many people think death is the end of the story.
But for me, it was the place God began something new.
Sometimes, God allows something to die. Not to end your story, but to begin another. Ruth, you had every reason to turn back. You were young, still beautiful, still capable of starting over in Moab. But you didn't.
No, I didn't. We stood at the edge of the road, Naomi and I, and her other daughter-in-law, Orpah. Naomi looked tired, not just in her face, but in her soul. She told us to go, to leave her, to start over. And Orpah wept, then turned. I don't blame her. That was the easier road, the logical one. But something in me, something deep, said, stay.
Even though it made no sense?
Especially because it made no sense. I wasn't just following Naomi. I was following the God who carried her grief, the God I had seen her weep to, the one she talked about, even when she felt abandoned by him. I didn't know much about him yet, but I knew enough to say, your people will be my people, and your God, my God.
You were giving up your home, your gods, your safety.
Yes. But I was also choosing covenant. I was choosing to love, not with words, but with steps. Each foot I placed on the path to Bethlehem was a vow, not just to Naomi, but to the God I hoped was real.
And that moment, that choice, it changed everything.
Yes, even though I had no idea what waited on the other side.
Loyalty is love in motion, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it costs you everything you know. Ruth, you arrived in Bethlehem with nothing. No husband, no family, no name anyone there would recognize. What was that like?
I came in as a foreigner. I knew the stares. I felt the whispers. People looked at me like I was an outsider, and I was. But hunger humbles you fast. Naomi and I, we didn't have much. No land, no inheritance. So I went where poor people go, to the edges. I walked into a field I didn't own, and I asked if I could glean the leftover grain behind the workers, bent low, hands in dirt, picking scraps. But my heart, still full of quiet hope.
That's hard. To ask, to bow, to live off what others leave behind.
It was, but I didn't feel shame. Because I wasn't begging, I was trusting. I didn't know it then. But I had walked into the field of a kind man named Boaz.
You didn't know he'd become part of your story.
At that moment, Boaz wasn't a love story. He was mercy in motion. He saw me, spoke kindly to me, told his workers not to touch me, even gave me more than I came for. And that day, I bent low in the dirt, but grace lifted me higher than I ever expected.
You gleaned in fields you didn't own. But the field owner noticed you. God sees you even in the back of the line, even when you feel unseen. His favor can find you anywhere, even in someone else's field. Let's talk about that night, the one Naomi told you about. Go to the threshing floor, she said. Uncover his feet and lie down. That moment sounds so strange to us now. But for you, what was going through your mind?
I was nervous. Let's not pretend I wasn't. It wasn't just bold, it was risky. A foreign woman, approaching a man at night. But Naomi, she spoke with the wisdom of a woman who's watched God work in strange ways, and I trusted her. I washed, I put on clean clothes, and I went. I crept in quietly, waited until Boaz had eaten and laid down. And then, just like she said, I uncovered his feet and lay there, in the dark, on the cold threshing floor, heart pounding.
That was a posture of humility, but also of hope.
Yes. It wasn't about seduction. It was about surrender. Laying at his feet meant this: I am under your covering. Will you extend it to me fully? When he woke up startled, I said something I had rehearsed in my heart 100 times. Spread the corner of your garment over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer.
A woman. Asking a man not for a date, but for destiny.
Exactly. I wasn't chasing romance. I was standing in line for redemption. And Boaz, he didn't shame me. He didn't scold me. He called me a woman of noble character. He promised to handle it the right way, to make it official, honorable. And that night, I left with grain in my hands and peace in my heart.
Some people think boldness is loud, but sometimes it's silent steps toward obedience. In the dark, at someone's feet.
Yes, that moment changed everything. Not because of how loud I was, but because of how low I was willing to go.
Sometimes your breakthrough is just one obedient step away, even when it feels strange, even when it's uncomfortable. Obedience, even the quiet kind, can open the door to everything you've prayed for. Ruth. The story didn't end at the threshing floor. There was still a process, a conversation at the city gate, a legal transaction. But eventually, he chose you. Boaz chose you. Tell us about that moment.
It didn't happen overnight. There was another man, closer in line. He had the right, but not the heart. He was willing to take the land, but not the woman, not me. So Boaz stood at the gate, in front of elders, in public view, and he said, I will redeem her. Those words, they hit differently when you've been rejected, when you've been left with nothing, when you've walked behind others in fields you didn't own. He didn't whisper it in secret. He declared it out loud. I will redeem her.
That must have healed something inside you.
It did. Because I had loved before and buried that love. I had lost before and grieved in silence. But now I was being chosen, not out of pity, but on purpose. He covered me. He honored me. And in time, he married me.
And the same Ruth who once wept in Moab, now danced in Bethlehem.
Yes, not because life was perfect, but because grace had found me.
And from that marriage, from your womb, would come Obed, then Jesse, then David.
And generations later, Jesus.
Never underestimate a woman with a broken past and a loyal heart. God doesn't just restore, He rewrites. From widow to wife, from loss to legacy. You didn't just marry Boaz, you became part of something bigger.
Yes. Sometimes I sit and think, how did a Moabite widow end up in the story of the Messiah? It wasn't luck, it was mercy. God didn't just give me a new life. He gave me a name, a place, a legacy.
And that legacy still speaks.
Because the moment you say yes to God, even when it hurts, even when it's not clear, even when others walk away, that yes echoes beyond your lifetime. I came from a land that didn't worship Him, but I chose Him. And He chose to write me into the bloodline of His Son.
You said yes. And God wrote Jesus through your story.
I lost so much, but I gained something eternal.
To anyone watching or listening, if life stripped you of everything, if you've buried your dreams, if you're picking up pieces in someone else's field, know this: God is not done. He turns pain into promise, loss into legacy. Ruth's life proves it. Ruth taught us today that loyalty matters, that obedience counts, and that even when you feel unseen, heaven sees you. Maybe you're at a crossroads like she was. Maybe someone told you to turn back. Maybe life has emptied you. But Ruth reminds us there's purpose beyond the pain. What part of Ruth's story moved you most? Let us know in the comments. And if you're walking through your own gleaning season, don't quit. Keep showing up in the field, because God's favor knows where to find you.